It's 6:58 on a Wednesday morning. You're standing in your kitchen holding a coffee mug with a chip in the handle you've been meaning to replace for 4 years. Through the window, your neighbor is loading suitcases into a brand new Range Rover. He waves, you wave back. Your car is a 2011 Corolla with 161,000 miles on it. The check engine light has been on so long you've stopped noticing it. On the counter, your brokerage op is open. You glance at it, $438,000. You close the app, rinse the mug, grab your keys, and drive the Corolla to work. Nobody who sees you that morning would guess what's actually happening. And that's exactly the point. Because 3 years earlier, that Corolla would have embarrassed you. Today, you barely think about it. Something changed. Not your income, not your house, not your clothes. Your definition of wealth changed. You stopped asking, how can I look successful? And started asking, how can I become financially impossible to control? It didn't happen overnight. There was no inheritance, no lottery ticket, no lucky stock. It started with one sentence from a man you almost forgot you'd met, and you didn't understand what he meant until years later. 6 years earlier, you're 26. You just got promoted to account manager. Your salary is $58,000. You read the offer letter 4 times in the parking lot before telling anyone. For the first time, you feel like you're getting somewhere. And that weekend, you lease a Volkswagen Jetta. Not because you need it. Your old Civic runs perfectly. But showing up to a client meeting in a 10-year-old hatchback feels like admitting you're not as successful as everyone else. The payment is $327 a month. And somehow, that payment feels like proof. Proof that you've arrived. The next month, you buy a Coach bag on a store credit card. 24.9% APR. Your coworker Danielle has one. Nobody comments when she puts hers on the conference table. And you want that particular kind of silence. The kind that says, of course she has that. Meanwhile, your checking account spends most weeks below $600. You don't think you're in trouble. You think you're normal because everyone around you is doing the same thing. Your friend Tyler does it louder. He's 27, works in commercial insurance, makes roughly what you make, drives a BMW 3 Series, leased for $489 a month. He has an expensive watch and somehow manages to mention it in conversations where watches weren't even part of the conversation. He's not stupid. He's not irresponsible. He's just made a decision most people make without realizing they've made it. If you have money, people should be able to see it. You believe the same thing, just with a Jetta instead of a BMW. Then, one Friday night, something changes. You're at your parents' house for dinner. Your grandfather's old business partner is there. His name is Walter Kessler. He's 74. He's owns 3 car dealerships during his life. But tonight he's wearing an old windbreaker that looks older than you. And he's driving a 2004 Volvo wagon with a dent in the rear bumper. Someone jokes about it. Walter, you owned 3 dealerships. You couldn't buy yourself a better car? Everyone laughs. Walter doesn't. He takes a sip of his drink and says, the car doesn't know what I'm worth. Neither does anyone looking at it. He pauses, then says that's usually the point. The conversation moves on. Nobody makes a big deal about it. You don't either. You think about the sentence for maybe 11 seconds, then forget about it. Or at least you think you do. That night, you're lying in bed. You open your bank app. Checking, $340. Credit card, $1,900. Investments, $0. You're 26. You're making $58,000 a year. And somehow, on paper, you're worth less than nothing. You close the app, but you don't forget Walter's sentence. The following weekend, Tyler shows you his new apartment. 1 bedroom, great view. He mentions the view twice in the first 10 minutes. Then he shows you a watch he's thinking about buying. $4,200. He's not really bragging. That's what makes it interesting. He genuinely believes owning it will make him feel different. You understand because that's exactly how you felt about the Jetta. So you go home that night and for the first time you don't ignore your credit card statement. $1,900 at 24.9%. You calculate the interest, roughly $39 a month, just for carrying the balance. You do the math 3 times because you don't want it to be true. 4 months later, you finally do something about it. Not something dramatic, something almost embarrassingly small. You're sitting in your car during lunch. You open a Roth IRA. You transfer $50. That's it, $50. No one knows, no announcement, no screenshot, no Instagram post saying you're building wealth. Just $50 sitting in an investment account while your credit card still says $1,400. And that's when you learn your first real lesson about money. The most important financial decisions in your life will probably look insignificant when you make them. The following spring, you cancel the Jetta lease. The termination fee is $612. It hurts, but you finally do the math. The lease is going to cost you nearly $11,700 over its life. And when it's over, you own nothing. So you buy your old Civic back from your cousin. $3,100 cash. It isn't impressive, but it is yours. Then you set up an automatic transfer, $150 from every paycheck, before you see it, before you can spend it, before your brain gets a vote. Later, after the credit card is gone, you raise it to $200, and then you wait. That's the entire strategy. No hot stock, no secret cryptocurrency, no guy on YouTube promising you financial freedom in 90 days. Just money moving quietly from your paycheck into assets. Every 2 weeks. Again, and again, and again. Meanwhile, Tyler upgrades his BMW. His payment goes from $489 to $561. You notice. You don't comment. You just keep going. At 29, your investment account crosses $22,000. Nobody knows. Your apartment still has the IKEA couch, your Civic still has scratches, your check engine light is still there. From the outside, almost nothing has changed. But something has. You can see it. The gap between what people assume about your life and what's actually happening is getting wider. And for the first time, you realize something strange. Being underestimated feels good when you know the truth. At 31, the account crosses $80,000. And then the market drops. Fast. Over 6 weeks, you watch $80,000 become $61,000. $19,000 disappeared from a screen. You check the app 4 times a day. You tell yourself you're calm. You're not. One morning, your hands actually feel cold when you open the account. You consider selling. You call Walter. You're not even sure what you're asking him. He listens, then says, "You didn't lose anything." You almost laugh. $19,000 just disappeared. Walter says you didn't sell anything. Silence. Then, the account is smaller on a Tuesday. It won't necessarily be smaller forever. You don't sell. You keep investing. Actually, you do something that feels completely backwards. You keep buying. Prices are lower, so your automatic contributions buy more shares. At the time, it doesn't feel intelligent. It feels painful. 6 months later, the account crosses $94,000. And that's when you understand another lesson. Wealth isn't built by avoiding every uncomfortable moment. Sometimes it's built by refusing to destroy your plan because of one. That same year, you receive a new job offer, director level, $86,000 base, plus a $650 monthly car allowance, enough to drive something genuinely impressive. You take the job. You don't take the car. You send the $650 into your brokerage account every month. Danielle sees you in the Civic that fall. She looks at the car, then at you, and asks, "Everything okay?" You smile. "Everything's fine. The Civic still runs." She nods, and that's the end of the conversation. Because how do you explain, "I make more money now, which is exactly why I don't need a more expensive car"? You can't, not without sounding like you're trying to prove something. And proving something is exactly what you're trying to stop doing. That $650 doesn't look impressive. It's just $650. But money has a strange characteristic. It can work long after you stop thinking about it. If you invest $650 every month for decades and earn a reasonable long-term market return, the result can become hundreds of thousands of dollars. The lease gives you 3 years of an impressive dashboard. The investment gives your future self options, and options are what wealthy people are actually buying. Not watches, not badges, not attention. Options. The option to leave a job, the option to help your parents, the option to survive a bad year, the option to say no, and eventually, the option to decide what your time is worth. You're 33. One Sunday morning, you open the brokerage account. A coffee beside you. 5 minutes. Nothing unusual. Then you notice something you've never seen before. That quarter, you contributed $2,400. The market growth? About $3,900. You check the numbers again. Your money made more money than your paycheck added. You sit there quietly. No celebration, no notification, no one to call. But something inside you shifts. For 7 years, your labor had been funding your wealth. Now, your wealth had started helping fund itself. And eventually, it wouldn't just work alongside you, it would work without you. That's when you finally understand what Walter was trying to say. That winter, the Civic's transmission dies. Repair estimate, $2,700. 3 years ago, that number would have been a crisis. A credit card, a sleepless night, a spreadsheet. Now, you'd transfer the money. Go ahead. That's it. Priya is standing beside you. She looks at you. You didn't even flinch. You smile. I used to flinch at $400. She thinks for a second. Then why are we still driving this car? You don't have a good answer yet, because the real answer isn't about cars. It's about identity. You could afford the car. You just didn't need the car to prove that you could. By 35, the account is above $340,000. You finally replace the Civic, but not with the car everyone expects. You buy a 2-year-old Accord, $19,400. Cash. No financing, no monthly payment, no need to impress anyone. When Tyler sees it, he laughs. You could afford something way nicer. You tell him, I know. And that's the difference. At 26, you couldn't afford the Jetta, but you wanted people to think you could. At 35, you can afford almost anything, and you no longer care whether people think you can. Then your company offers you another promotion, Regional VP, $34,000 more. But the job comes with 80-hour weeks, constant travel, and a boss known for burning people out. 3 years earlier, you would have taken it immediately. $34,000 would have sounded enormous. Now you turn it down. And this is the first time you realize something important. Financial freedom doesn't mean you can buy everything. It means you can finally afford to say no. You choose your evenings, you choose your weekends, you choose your time. The money didn't make you rich, it made you less desperate. And that was worth more than the title. Tyler takes the promotion. New title, new BMW, $712 monthly payment. Then comes the house, then renovations, then furniture, then another obligation. His income keeps increasing, so do his expenses. Until one January morning, his BMW gets repossessed. Nobody saw it coming, including Tyler. His income never collapsed. His lifestyle simply became too expensive to support. You don't judge him. You remember being him. So you help him with a month's rent, quietly. You don't tell anyone, and neither of you talks about it again. Because somewhere along the way, you've learned something else. Real wealth doesn't need an audience. At 37, your net worth crosses $700,000, and you realize you barely talk about money anymore. Not because you're hiding it, because you don't need to. You don't care what people think your car is worth. You don't care whether your watch is impressive. You don't care whether your house looks expensive. You've stopped using possessions as evidence. The numbers are enough. But something unexpected happens. The freedom gets quiet. Very quiet. Your friends don't see it. Your coworkers don't know it. Sometimes even the people closest to you don't fully understand it. And being financially invisible starts to feel lonely. One night, Priya asks you, are you happy? Not are you okay, not are you successful? Happy. You don't answer immediately because you expected the number to feel like an ending. It doesn't. It's just a number. You tell her, I'm not unhappy. Then you pause. But I thought having more would make me feel different. She asks, doesn't it? You look around the room and realize the answer is complicated. Money changed what you could do. It didn't automatically tell you what you should do. That part was still yours. Walter dies 2 winters later. At the funeral, his daughter mentions something almost casually. Walter had left behind far more money than anyone in the family realized, accounts nobody knew about, investments nobody had heard him discuss. And that old Volvo? 190,000 miles. The dealership had apparently offered to buy it for scrap. You almost laugh, because suddenly you understand. The Volvo was never the point. Neither was the windbreaker. Walter wasn't trying to look wealthy. He had simply stopped needing the world to confirm that he was. And that's when the sentence from that dinner finally makes sense. The car doesn't know what I'm worth. Neither does anyone looking at it. You thought he was talking about cars. He wasn't. He was talking about freedom. Now it's 6:58 on a Wednesday morning again. 6 years later, you're standing in the same kitchen. The mug isn't chipped anymore, although the old one is still sitting in a drawer. You never threw it away. Through the window, your neighbor is loading suitcases into another Range Rover, a newer one. He waves, you wave back. Your 4-year-old Accord sits in the driveway, paid off. Your brokerage app is open on the counter. $1,120,000. You look at it the same way you look at the weather. You don't need to check every 5 minutes. You don't need to tell anyone. You close the app, grab your keys, and drive to a job you chose to keep, not one you're afraid to lose. And somewhere between the kitchen and the driveway, you realize the biggest change wasn't the money. It was this. At 26, you bought things to prove you were becoming someone. At 38, you don't need to prove anything, because wealth stopped being something you wanted people to see and became something you wanted your future self to feel. Security, options, time, freedom. That's what old money understood long before you did. Looking rich is expensive. Being wealthy is often boring, and the boring part is exactly what makes it work. So ask yourself one question. Not, what can I afford? Ask, what am I buying because I want to look successful instead of investing because I want to become free? Because the most dangerous financial decision isn't always buying something you can't afford. Sometimes it's buying something you can afford when your future self needs that money more than your ego does. If this story changed the way you think about wealth, hit like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what's one thing you stopped buying when you realized you cared more about freedom than looking successful? Because sometimes the richest person in the room is the one nobody notices.